June 23rd, 2024. Canadian Pacific 2816 is having its final preparations made for tomorrow's run from Shreveport, Louisiana to Heavener, Oklahoma. After over 2 months on the road, the Final Spike Steam Tour is homeward bound for CPKC headquarters in Calgary. The Empress arrived into Shreveport on the night of June 15th. We have a unique view from on board the Final Spike Steam Tour as it rolled by the Bell House to tie down for the night. We rolled by the set of Kansas City Southern F units that are heavily sought after by any rail buff. We were fortunate enough to receive an invitation to ride behind the Empress between Vidor, Texas and Shreveport. You will be seeing more of this onboard footage scattered throughout the video when we take a closer look at some of the business car fleet. For the past 8 days, the Locomotive has called the Bell House home. The steam crew has been busy maintaining the engine in preparation for its final stretch home. The boiler was given a nice wash, paired along with work done on the running gear. Other typical maintenance, such as greasing the rods, have taken place on a daily basis. Along with the mechanical side of things, the Locomotive is also wiped down every day to ensure it is looking its absolute best while out on the main line for everyone to see. There is truly very little downtime when it comes to maintaining a 93.5-year-old steam locomotive, so we have to give props to the crew that keeps the 2816 rolling. With permission from CPKC and while wearing the proper PPE, we were lucky enough to get up close and personal. The first thing that many will notice is the massive 75-inch driving wheels that allowed the H1B class Hudsons to reach speeds of 100 miles per hour in the flatlands of Canada. The Hudson wheel configurations were primarily used for high-speed passenger service, much like the 462 Pacific types. The crew has about 2.5 weeks left on the road before they can officially wrap up one of the most historic steam events in history. As mentioned earlier, tomorrow the Empress will be traversing the former KCS Shreveport Subdivision. Soon the crew will wrap up and get some rest, because tomorrow the Empress will be back on the main line and continue her journey back home. The following morning, despite the Empress making the trip north today, CPKC still has freight to move for its growing customer base. We catch a southbound manifest with a very healthy mix of KCS and CP power. Once the southbound clears the yard, it'll be time for the 2816 to announce her presence in the small town of Mooringsport. Soon the sound of 2816's air whistle is heard, blowing for the grade crossings through town. But the crew would have a little fun with the 6 chime as it crossed over Caddo Lake. Just south of Ashdown, Arkansas, in a small town called Ogden, a southbound grain train bound for Mexico races by the photo line. 2816 is waiting in the siding in Texarkana for this freight to clear. While in the siding, the locomotive would conduct its first service stop of the day. It wouldn't be long before the Empress is back on the move at track speed. While the lighting for much of this northbound run would be working against us, we did manage to get a bird's eye perspective from the Highway 70 overpass. Tri-light signals still guard the tracks on the south end of CPKC's yard into Queen. The train's consist is made up of 17 cars of both Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern heritage. While the KCS cars are slowly but surely being repainted to match the CP cars, the KCS lettering and titles will remain. Several of these CP passenger cars are utilized in the Royal Canadian Pacific business train. Putting things simply, there aren't many words in the English language that can explain just how extraordinary the interior of the RCP cars truly are. We'd be granted access to 3 of the cars in the consist during our ride: the Glacier, the Major Rogers, and the Selkirk. The Royal Canadian Pacific was formed at the turn of the millennia in 2000. Established as a subsidiary of the Canadian Pacific Railway, the RCP would essentially operate luxury business train trips across the system. While it's been several years since excursions have taken place, the train is still available to private charters. These cars have hosted several high-profile individuals such as Queen Elizabeth, Winston Churchill, and JFK, just to name a few. Currently, the CP Heritage Fleet is kept in a climate-controlled facility at CPKC's Ogden campus, while the KCS cars are stored inside the Bell House within the Shreveport Yard in Louisiana. So let's take a dive into the cars that we were granted access to, starting with the Glacier, the number 89. The Glacier is a dining car that was built by Pullman in 1954. After its original revenue career with Canadian National and later Via Rail, the car was donated to the British Columbia chapter of the NRHS. CP acquired it in 2019 and conducted a complete rebuild with new HVAC and plumbing systems. The kitchen was modernized and the dining hall was remodeled with impressive interior designs with a grand dining table right through the center. The Major Rogers is a bar and lounge car that was originally built in 1960 for Union Pacific. Shortly after its formation, Amtrak would acquire the car and utilize it until 2000. The car was owned by a private owner until 2006, when the Canadian Pacific acquired it. While used as a coach for the steam program, it would join the ranks of the RCP when the Empress would go on hiatus in 2012. This coach would soon receive a complete renovation into its current form. Included in this renovation was a full-service bar, cherry wood interior, Wi-Fi, satellite TV, a sound system, and much more. If you ever find yourself aboard the RCP, be sure to sign the guest book, which is located in this car. Last but certainly not least, we have the Selkirk, easily my favorite passenger car that I've ever been inside of. These clips simply do not do the car justice. The amount of care taken into the renovation of the 3605 cannot be matched. The Selkirk is of Southern Pacific heritage. Since the SP had numerous tunnels along their route, conventional domes were not viable due to clearance issues. These custom-made cars were the shortest in height to ever see service, thanks to the idea of converting the original car's roof into glass. When acquired by CP in 2018, 14 months of extensive work commenced to renovate the Selkirk. I wish I could find better words to explain it, but this car is truly extraordinary, and hats off to the Heritage team for a job well done. And of course, if you're familiar with this channel, you know that I have to include a good friend of ours whenever any type of business excursion is on the move. Unfortunately, good old Cyrus was not aboard the Northbound run in the United States, so we decided to FaceTime him to ensure that he was included in some form.
Okay. Yeah, say hello to YouTube, buddy.
Hey, YouTube. Make sure to watch our videos every time they come out.
Good man, good man. All right, man, we'll let you go. We just had to get you in here. See ya.
Along the sharp curve in Wickes, 2816 is tied down for about half an hour for its second service stop of the day. Soon the train will battle the tough grades of Rich Mountain before the final stretch to Heavener. While the Empress was able to conquer the mountain on its southbound journey, it took everything the steam locomotive and both F units had to climb those grades. It was after its battle against Rich Mountain that the large and powerful SD-70 ACU number 7013 was needed for extra power on the consist. 2816's tender can hold over 14,000 gallons of water and 5,400 gallons of oil. While 14,000 gallons seems like a plentiful amount, the Excursion still requires 2 extra auxiliary tenders that combined hold another 30 gallons of water. 2816 and her 64 sister engines of the Hudson Wheel configuration were built by the Montreal Locomotive Works. The H1B specifically could reach a power output of 4,700 horsepower and over 45,000 pounds of tractive effort. Boiler pressure is marked at 275 psi. Spanning at over 91 feet in length, the locomotive itself weighs 351,200 pounds, with the tender adding another 291,000, with a total combined weight of 643,100 pounds. While a relic of the past, the 2816 has been given some quite modern upgrades. I'm specifically referring to its new installation of PTC technology. 2816 is the first steam locomotive in history to have this feature directly on it. Before some of you finish typing your comments, yes, the Union Pacific Big Boy 4014 was the first steam engine to receive some type of PTC in 2021. But it was a modified version that was linked through its helper diesel locomotive. So technically speaking, the Big Boy's PTC had not been directly installed onto the 4014 until its recent test in May of 2024. CPKC tested a direct PTC connection to the 2816 in October of 2023, several months before UP. The Final Spike Steam Tour now battles one of the toughest hurdles between here and its home in Calgary, in the form of Rich Mountain. A true photographer will always ensure that the shot is perfect. Here's an example of Peyton being lent a saw from David Hogue to cut some of the shrubbery to ensure that shot comes out nice. Successfully beating the grades and now on the downward slope, dispatch has set up a meet in Page, Oklahoma for a southbound grain train to pass. We are set up just north of Page in an area called Blue Cut. A pair of EMDs can be heard screaming as this grain still has a long way to go upgrade. The southbound is clear, and now 2816 has been lined up by dispatch for a straight shot into the yard at Heavener. After about 8 hours on the main line, the sound of a steam whistle is finally heard echoing throughout the small railroad town of Heavener. This would be our last clip of the train as it makes its final approach into the yard, which will conclude the very busy day. I want to give a special thanks to the men and women of CPKC that spent years of coordination and countless hours of work to make such an historic event take place. I'd also like to thank those involved in inviting myself and other volunteers of the Holiday Express aboard for a ride. Truly unreal, and our gratitude cannot be expressed enough. The 2816's time along the former KCS system has truly been an experience that no rail fan will be forgetting anytime soon. If by chance any of those involved are watching, major props on a job well done. We truly hope you know how much we appreciate your commitment to making this excursion unforgettable, and we wish you safe travels home. I highly recommend you check out our chase of the Final Spike Steam Tour southbound run from Kansas City to Shreveport. That video overviews much of the history of the 2816, a look at CPKC's new paint scheme, and so much more. I'll leave a link to the video down below. I really do hope you've enjoyed watching the video, and if you did, please leave a like down below. Until the next time, my friends, I'll be seeing you somewhere out there along the rails, and as always, thanks for watching.